Ladies and gentlemen, ASHE has cemented herself as one of the top DPS in the entire game of Overwatch. All that being said though, she can be pretty difficult to learn and master, so in this video let's break down everything that makes this sharpshooter tick so that you can become insane at this character as quickly as possible. Before we jump into it, if you want to have insane aim like Bob and start popping off, go check out GameLeap.com. We have in-depth mechanical sections that will help improve your aim and in-depth ASHE sections that will break down everything you need to know about how to master this hero. Anyways, all that being said, let's just jump right into it, shall we? Now ASHE fits the sniper category held by Widow and Hanzo, but typically she's been held down by these two characters. So what really happened? Well, really quickly, firstly, the meta became Echo Double Shield, which she contests really easily and she gets a lot of value into. People realized how good she was to pocket, and she's been getting a steady stream of buffs that makes her fairly viable. Now, the first thing you need to do before you jump into your ASHE Road to Grandmaster adventure, you need to match your sensitivity from Widow and Ana to ASHE. Now, you would think intuitively the aim down the sights on ASHE would be exactly the same as Widow, but it is absolutely not. The easy way for you to get the exact same sensitivity is multiply the Widow sensitivity by 1.35633. Now, if that's a little bit too complicated for you, in the links down below, I'm going to include a little calculator that someone made online that helps us easily convert whatever your Widow sense is to your ASHE sense is, so that you can make sure that you have the exact same sensitivity, so that the muscle memory that you have built up playing other heroes like Widow and Ana perfectly translates. And I know it's a little frustrating, but this is what you need to do right off the bat before we do anything else. Now, the first thing that we need to break down for you is her primary weapon, the Viper. Now, the most important thing when using this weapon is ammo conservation, as ASHE is the only hero with this much downtime, especially if you waste your ammo. Now, as far as raw damage or DPS, aiming not down the sights actually does quite a bit of damage rapidly over time, even if you don't hit headshots, but it's very inefficient as far as ammo conservation. And in addition to that, the hip fire fall off starts at 20 meters and ends at 40, as opposed to 30 to 50 aim down the sights. The big takeaway here is, yes, you could definitely use it to finish off a close range target, but generally aim down the sights is going to be far more ammo to damage efficient, and it's going to leave you enough reserve ammo in order to actually take on multiple targets, because if you waste all your ammo hip firing trying to take down a target, you're not going to be able to have any ammo for follow-up kills, and you're just going to spend the whole time reloading, which is not what you want to do at all. Now, as far as the effective positioning of ASHE, it is typically on the high ground, where it's far easier to get dynamites behind the shields and hit pop shots into the enemy backline, and you can utilize your range advantage versus a lot of other DPS that you're out of their effective range, such as McCree or Soldier. On top of this, one of the strongest fundamental aspects of ASHE's in comparison to a character like Widow is a CC in Coach Gun that creates distance and can boop divers when they dive her on the high ground. Imagine a monkey that jumps up on top of you. You can use your Coach Gun to boop him down, and then he has to wait for his cooldown to come back online, and before he gets to do that, you can completely reposition. Now, this, in addition to the closer effective range of ASHE, means that she has much more game against divers and can position herself far more aggressively than a Widowmaker can as a result. Now, speaking of Coach Gun, remember that in a pinch, you can actually use your Coach Gun to detonate dynamite. This is best used to throw a dynamite on the ground, and if you get dove, you can Coach Gun yourself away and the enemy away, all the while detonating the dynamite and lighting them on fire. Now, keep in mind, while Coach Gun can do up to 90 damage, in practice, it's not going to do hardly any damage. It shouldn't be used as an aggressive tool to deal damage. It's not an ability you want to waste frivolously because it's your only form of mobility. At a 10-second cooldown, you need to only use it to transition to places like the high ground when you know that you won't directly get dove or punished by an enemy Genji or Winston or something like that. Now, lastly, we have to talk about Dynamite, which is an insanely strong ability that is rather easy to use, actually. Dynamite puts so much consistent pressure on healers that some healers can't deal with the pressure if you get off multiple sizable dynamites. Their pressure amps up and will often get them to waste key abilities like nade, amp, and immortality if you get large dynamites. Now, as far as another use of Dynamite is you can deal damage to enemies from behind shields and when they run behind natural cover. So if you do a little bit of damage to someone and they run behind natural cover, you could still pressure them with a Dynamite, which is incredibly powerful, even if they're out of your LOS. Now, hitting Dynamites is incredibly easy if you throw it right in front of you and you hold the primary fire button, you will instantly shoot it and destroy it about 8 to 10 meters away. Now, if you want to throw a dynamite further and still shoot it, I would suggest throwing it in an upper arc and then just waiting for it to pass your crosshair on the way back down. So all you have to do is time it right and react to it instead of trying to flick to it or track it midair. Now, a simple combo that everyone should remember is that a body shot not aiming down the sights and then a follow-up aim down the sights headshot will instantly kill a 200 HP hero as long as you're not greatly far away past that 40-meter range. Now, next up, we need to dive face first into all of the top ASHE tips that you could start utilizing for tons of free value that you're probably leaving on the table. Now, first off, while Dynamite, yes, is on a 10-second cooldown, it's important to understand that the timer actually starts when you throw the Dynamite. So if you practice hitting choke points from really far away, or you throw it at door openings when enemies are going to push out of spawn, you could potentially get free ult charge and have your Dynamite right up for when the enemies are engaging. So that's a way that you can get probably like 10% ult charge for free, and free value is always good. It can mean more bobs overall in a game. Now, next up, remember that hitting a scope shot is relatively easy at the apex of a vertical coach gun. You fly up in the air, but for a little bit at the apex, you will float there and it will give you an opportunity to actually hit a couple of shots. Now, this is really powerful because you can actually use it to follow up a dynamite to actually secure a kill on an enemy behind shields or natural cover, and it's actually a kill combo. If you hit an enemy with dynamite and you vertical coach gun a headshot aim down the sight, that could easily kill a 200 HP squishy, and it can really open up a fight. When the enemies are playing really secure, you could still force through a kill this way, in a similar way like a Widow grappling up and trying to get a kill that way. Now, the third big tip that we have for you is about Bob. We got to talk about Bob because Bob is an ultimate that a lot of people are just either throwing it off the map or they're getting it slept or shut down, and it's getting no value even though it's an insane ultimate if you use it correctly. Now, keep in mind that Bob will often slide off of rounded edges and run completely off the map. Just because you're throwing him at a corner, he's not necessarily going to stop right at that corner. Any single rounded edge and any single slanted surface, he could just run right along and run right off the map, so really keep that in mind. Now, the second thing you need to think about is that you have to track enemies' abilities, especially Sleep Dart, that can shut a Bob down, but other abilities still are included here, like Roadhog's Hook that could potentially hook it off the map. The best time to use Bob is actually when enemies are already pressured and have low shield health, so that it actually creates space. Think about it this way. If an enemy Ryan has a full shield and you throw your Bob in, he can just shield it off and enemies can either focus it down or they can ignore it altogether. But if the Reinhardt has no shield health, then he's in a predicament where he can either face tank the Bob's damage or he has to hide behind natural cover, as does the rest of the team. That puts pressure on the enemy and creates space for you and your team to push in and actually make some plays. Now, last up, you can actually use the entrance and knock up of Bob to actually make plays on the enemy. The CC aspect, when he knocks an enemy up into the air, it can allow you to hit an easy headshot on them because they're in a fixed position, especially at the apex of the knockup. They're basically floating midair without moving at all. Now, also as an additional tip, keep in mind that oftentimes in overtime, when someone has to touch the cart, usually the first person to touch the cart, unless they're Hammond, will get all the focus fire on them and then they'll usually die. But Bob can touch the cart and get focused, still get that first touch, and if it dies, it's not that big of a deal. You're still in the perfect 6v6 scenario, and one of his best uses is actually touching in overtime. Now, lastly, probably our most important tip for you is every single time you're reloading, you need to be sure to repositioning if there's any better positioning you could take. Take this downtime to really analyze how safe you are and how easy it is for you to do damage to the enemy, and use the reload time to actually reposition. That way, you're not wasting reload time just waiting around, and you can better your position every single step of the way. Now, lastly, as our last major topic, we have to talk about counters and getting pocketed on ASHE. Now, the three big counters in my mind for ASHE is D.Va, Hanzo, and Widowmaker. Now, D.Va's a counter because she can zone an ASHE away that is by herself, and she can eat dynamites, which take away a lot of the DPS and pressure from ASHE. Now, to deal with a D.Va, you always need to monitor her DM and make sure that you play the high ground far enough away so that you could use your coach gun to run, and make sure that you save your coach gun if the enemy D.Va still has her shift. Now, if you have a mercy pocket, often you can just hold your ground against the D.Va and she can't kill you unless she's coming with multiple enemies. Then, of course, you're going to have to relocate. Now, Widow and Hanzo traditionally have a leg up on an ASHE, so you really need to be playing your effective range here and flush them out with Dynamite out of their LOS. You don't necessarily want to be taking a straight up duel against the Widow and Hanzo, especially from the longer ranges, because they can one-shot you from any range, and you can't one-shot them at all unless you have your damage boost pocket. Now, if you do have a Mercy pocket, keep in mind that everything in this entire video changes on ASHE. You can be extremely alpha way more, and you can even take duels way more, because against enemies like Widow, Hanzo, or Squishies, if you're close enough, a simple flank can just kill enemies one after the other. You're almost like a Widowmaker, but you get to fire far more quickly, and you could follow up so many kills so rapidly that enemies really can't respond very well. Your one-shot headshots can kill 200 HP heroes, and your Dynamite puts in extra lethal pressure on healers, meaning that you're really powerful and you're hard to push solo when you have a pocket. Most of the time, enemies are going to need two characters to come at you unless their Widowmaker can hit an insane shot. But if you play in your effective range, you have an overwhelming advantage there. Just keep in mind, as far as movement's concerned, while on a lot of characters you want to spam crouch in order to dodge potential headshots, with ASHE, her head hitbox doesn't really move that much when you spam crouch. So I would highly suggest you don't spam crouch at all. You just focus on hitting your shot far more, and you can do slight strafes as well. Now, to close off this video, this is a PSA to Mercy players in particular. Find yourself an ASHE to pocket. If you're having trouble dealing with Hanzo's, Widowmakers, or you're getting farmed by Echoes over and over again, find yourself an ASHE main, pocket that ASHE main, and both of you together will win tons of games. It is an insane combo. I've said it many times in the past that it's the most powerful pocket in the entire game, and in this meta in particular, it just completely dominates on everything. An ASHE Mercy can single-handedly carry a game, and as Mercy in particular, you want to put extra effort into just pocketing your ASHE. Don't worry too much about healing up your tanks to max or whatever like that. I know that that is some of your job, but keep in mind, a damage boost on an ASHE at the right moment can all of a sudden get 2 picks out of nowhere and turn a fight that you had no business winning. So really keep that in mind. And as an ASHE, of course, seek out these Mercy players because it really brings a lot more value to your character. Well, yes, all these tips and tricks work exceptionally well, and ASHE is still a good character even without a pocket. If you get that pocket, it makes you that much more lethal, and a lot of Mercies are going to want to pocket you because they're going to win more games because of you. And I think that's a mutually symbiotic relationship for everybody. Anyways, if you learned anything from this video, you're going to learn even more at GameLeap.com. So do yourself a huge favor and go check it out if you want to level up your game and become broken. Anyways, if you want to see more videos, definitely let me know your suggestions in the comments down below. That's all I got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time,